The latest polls show you 35 points ahead of your opponent. Is this just a foregone conclusion that you're the next governor?
No, it's not a foregone conclusion for a couple reasons. One, it's 2020, and we don't take anything for granted in 2020. But more importantly, these things matter, and it's critical, I think, that the people of Utah that they have an opportunity to hear different perspectives and different ideas, and that they get a chance to make a decision. And so I don't, however it turns out, whether it's inevitable or not, I think it really matters that we do these things.
So what are you doing to go out and win all of those votes?
Yeah, well, we're doing this. That's one of the things that we're doing. We released all of our ads over the past week. We're doing a lot of Facebook and digital ads as well as on TV. And then we're going out. Again, campaigning during a pandemic is very different. And so we're reaching out to groups. We're doing a lot of forums with different organizations. And then I'm working with down ballot Republicans who are in close races as well. It's a great opportunity for me to go out and meet people who are in these swing districts that we need to win for our Republican legislators, and then again I'm going down to Southern Utah. I'll be I'll be down in St. George this weekend, and so trying to still visit all 248 cities and towns, but we're not done.
At this point, do you have concerns that this election will just be a referendum on the state's handling of COVID-19?
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a referendum on a lot of things. My bigger concern is that it's a referendum on the national dialogue and what's happening there. I think, again, I know in a pandemic it's very difficult, and every state's facing this. I talk to governors, again, on the right and left, and people are mad that you're doing too much, or they're mad that you're not doing enough. It's almost impossible to thread that needle, and we understand that. So it's certainly a difficult political situation, but there are so many more things that are difficult than politics. I mean, people are struggling right now. People are scared. People are angry. People have lost their jobs. People's kids aren't in school, and people are sick, and people have lost their lives. And so it's really tough for everyone, and that's far more important than politics.
During the debate, during the conversation on education funding, specifically equalization,
yeah,
how do you get the rural district up to the funding that the Canyons is? You mentioned you've been working with the delegation there. Were you talking about PILT?
Yeah,
funding?
PILT
Okay,
specifically,
so,
yeah.
When you take a look at what's coming in PILT, a lot of people look at that as it's grossly underfunded. What's the likelihood you're really going to get that bumped up to where you think it should be?
Yeah, so it's something that many of us have been working on for a long time, and I know we're not going to get it up to where it probably should be, but by isolating those parcels that are within municipalities or close to it, I think we can actually make a difference, and I think that those are areas where the federal government, and we have had some success with this. We've been able to make some trades and then help sell those or develop those. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about mountain landscapes or BLM land. We're talking about parcels within cities, and I think that alone would make a tremendous difference and influx in funding that we could use for education.
So if that were not to come through, though, because a lot of people are skeptical.
Yeah.
How do you get the lower funded school districts up to where some of the higher funded are there?
Yeah, well, there's lots of different ideas floating around, and it's going to take close work with the legislature, and so I want to be careful not to get too far out ahead of them, but I'll just share a couple ideas. I mean, one, for example, you may have just seen Treasurer Damshin that the money that is coming into the school fund from our public lands royalties on those lands continues to grow every year. And so there's some talk about maybe, again, disproportionately sharing that, so that more goes to our lower funded schools versus our higher funded schools. That's one way that we could help to alleviate some of that distinction, and there are others that we'll be working on. Other question? Oh, we got one on here. Lisa. I don't know if I can hear you, but if you can hear me.
Hi,
oh, I can hear you.
There's always that pause, right, with the mute
The Zoom
button.
pause.
Yes. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on the education funding. Do you think that can raise enough money, not just to solve this equalization problem that you see, but to solve the larger issue of school funding, especially post COVID, yes, there was a 2% increase in school funding, but, you know.
Yeah, it was
schools
less than
are
we'd hoped.
expected- Yeah,
Yeah.
6%, and the promise is much higher. Is there going to need to be something else done to get schools where they need to be beyond what you're able to do with public lands?
Yeah, possibly. Again, we'll look. We want to see what those numbers are. There possibly is some more that we could do, and looking again at the equalization piece of that. We've done some of that in the past. Senator Osmond ran a bill a few years ago that helped to equalize some of that. Again, using some of the tax levy rate in higher performing districts and getting that to some lower performing districts. And those are the types of conversations that we'll be having over the next several months.
If I could just follow up, when you say possibly more would need to be done than what you're talking about with public lands, not just for equalization, but for overall funding of schools, what else is a possibility on the table for you?
Well,
It's
just
not a tax increase.
excuse me, just the ones that I've mentioned so far. Other questions?
I had a final question.
Yeah, please, lad.
You talked about visiting rural parts of the state. I'm just wondering, tonight's questions, are we hitting the mark? Are we talking about the issues that those that don't live along the Wasatch Front are worried about? What do you hear when you go to rural areas? What are people concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And look, I get it, right? I mean, most of the population lives here on the Wasatch Front. It does get frustrating to those of us that live in rural Utah that we're not seeing more of that economic development piece. And this is hard. I've been working on it for years. My dad worked on it before. It's really difficult, but I do think that some of the changes we're seeing, and the only frustration was we didn't have enough time to flesh out some of these things, and that's just the nature of these debates. But the telework piece, telehealth, we have a zip code problem in this state, and we're very proud of the numbers. Again, best upward mobility, all of those things. But when you really drill down in the numbers, there's a lot of people being excluded, and rural Utah certainly feels that way, and doesn't feel that way. It's just true. We can look at life expectancy in rural Utah, and it's lower, right? Suicide rates are higher. Opioid addiction rates are significantly higher, and I think we talk about how divided we are as a nation. Heaven knows what's happening right now. I can't even imagine during this debate. And I've thought a lot over the past 4 years, like how did we get here? And when you look at a map of the 2016 election, there's kind of these sea of reds and then these deep pockets of blue, and certainly, there are people in those blue areas that are feeling left behind too, and people in those rural areas are feeling it with globalization and feeling that politicians don't keep their promises and don't care about us anymore, and so there's kind of this, well, let's just blow it up and vote for a president who blows stuff up, right? And so I think we've seen that, and it concerns me because it's fraying at who we are. Now, I think it's different here in Utah. I think we still really do care about each other, and we want to make it a better place, and we hold our politicians to a higher standard. But it's not inevitable. It doesn't always have to be that way. And so I just, I hope, my plea is that, to whoever wins this election and legislators and those across, those in the media, that you'll just remember those people that live a long ways from here, because they feel like they're not getting remembered. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.